السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amma ba'd. Subhanallah, everything in Islam, whether it is salah, whether it is siyam, whether it is having manners and akhlaq, everything in Islam points towards one thing. If you understand the reality of Islam, it all points towards knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what the whole entire religion is based on, subhanallah. If your knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been affected by misinformation, or by the shaitan, or by any other source, your salah will immediately be affected. Your siyam will immediately be affected. And of course, the way you deal with people and the way you conduct yourself will be affected as well. Why? Because subhanallah, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the core of everything in this world, subhanallah. Now, we can know more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through many different things. As a fact, everything out there is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, and is a way to understand and to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the greatest Islamic scholars, wrote a book called Al-Hikmah fi Makhluqatillah. Al-Hikmah fi Makhluqatillah. So the wisdom behind the different types of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the most amazing books that I've ever seen, subhanallah. He goes into the weirdest of creations, subhanAllah. He talks about fish, and about birds, and about fire, and about water. And he goes into the details, the small, subhanAllah, details that people today don't even think about. And he was living nearly 1,000 years ago, going through these details. And he shows how everything points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is a clear proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only existing, but is the creator of everything, and is the one who controls everything. Everything is controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this brings us to the topic of today, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through al-qada and al-qadr. I'd like to start with the Islamic definition of qada and qadr. Qada and qadr is a concept that a lot of Muslims hear but don't know much about, don't understand much about. So the simplest definition of qada and qadr, you might read a lot of different definitions out there. The simplest definition is the definition of the majority of scholars of Islam, of Ahl-Sunnah, and it is that al-qada is basically the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that everything is going to happen before, not just before it happened, before time started. So there was no time before everything was created, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen before time started. So the knowledge of Allah is what is known as al-qada. And then qadr is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating everything according to His knowledge. So everything is happening, the plan is happening according to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, anyone who's a true believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should automatically believe in this, and shouldn't have a big issue with this, because if you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the universe, and you have the logical evidence for that, and you know that the creator of the universe can only be subhanahu wa ta'ala all-knowing, He can only be all-knowing, then you would have immediately believed and understood the concept of al-qada. If you also know that He subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-powerful, and He is the only creator, so no one out there can create something from nothing. No one can create anything, make something turn into existence before it being something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything stems from Allah and comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the belief that we have in al-qadr. So, alhamdulillah, our belief in qada and qadr is a belief that is built on evidence, not only from the Quran, the Sunnah, but also from the logic and from the mind. And it is a belief that should be there, not only for every Muslim, but for every person out there. Once we have this understanding and we have this belief, subhanAllah, we might be able to understand things a little bit better. When you look out there and you see things happening and you don't know why they're happening. When you see cars driving the road and you see rivers, subhanAllah, running, and you see the rain pouring down, you see the sun coming out. You need to know that this is all there because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew what's going to happen and created it and willed for it to happen. Now, after we have this strong belief, a lot of Muslims start to have questions. Okay, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create this? And why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create that? And why did this happen? And why did that happen? These questions are important to deal with, but only after we understand the core belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must have created everything and there's no second possibility. Once we understand that, we should come to these questions that everyone asks out there. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything, and the scholars say that there is a hikmah in everything. So there is wisdom in everything. Every single thing that happens has wisdom behind it. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is something that we need to understand very carefully, does not create things because He needs them. Okay, so there's no reason, meaning a reason that He created and He wanted to benefit something from His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot benefit anything from His creation. The creation are the ones who benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no gain for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in creation at all. And that's what the scholars mean when they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates without reason. Meaning that He doesn't have a need that He creates for. But there is still hikmah. There is still the wisdom in the creation. There is still good outcomes from every single thing out there. So subhanAllah, is there evil out there? Is there bad out there? And why is it out there? Is a question that every single person asks themselves many times in their life. And subhanAllah, the answer that a lot of scholars have mentioned when they're talking about bad and evil is that evil and bad is only evil and bad according to certain people. Even the creation of Iblis himself has some good in it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided a lot of people through the creation of Iblis, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown the greatness of Adam alayhi salam, the prophets, through the creation of Iblis. And subhanAllah, some scholars like Ibn Qayyim have mentioned, I think, over 100 amazing points to do with the creation of Iblis and the good that came out of that, subhanAllah. So there is hikmah in everything, but we don't always understand the reason behind everything, and we don't have to understand the reason behind everything, even though there is hikmah behind everything. Now, as Muslims, it's important for us not to focus on why everything has happened, because if you, subhanAllah, I always used to just asking the question, why, the shaitan comes in and he starts to play with these questions and starts to put doubts in your heart. Okay, there's no need for that. The more answers you get, it's not going to change anything. But it's important for every Muslim and Muslim out there, once they have the strong belief that I mentioned, to know what they have to do, to know their goal in life, okay? Know that everything is written down and that nothing is going to happen unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted it to happen. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Ibn Abbas, "I'lam anna ma asabaka lam yakun liyukhti'ak wa ma akhta'aka lam yakun liyusibak." Whatever bad happened to you, it was never going to not happen. And whatever good happens to you was always going to happen to you. So everything is under the hands of Allah. This should give us a little bit of, subhanAllah, certainty in life. This should actually make us calm. We shouldn't worry too much about what's going to happen because the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. So let's start our job. Our job, okay, is to work with what we have in front of us, what we see. Subhanallah, the reasons that we see out there and the physical things around us are what Allah told us to deal with, not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do and the outcome that's going to happen. So the outcome is not up to us, the outcome is up to Allah, but the action And what you should do right now is up to you, and this is what Allah is going to judge you according to. So if a Muslim, for example, has $5,000, okay, and he needs to pay the zakat on his $5,000, and the time of zakat comes, and he decides not to pay zakat, but to invest his $5,000 in something else, and he intends later on, once his investment turns into a very big business, he's going to give a big portion of his money to charity. This person would be a great sinner, and he might be someone who is committing one of the greatest sins in Islam. Why? Because he didn't deal with what he was told to do the time he was told to do it. So you don't have to worry about the future, but worry about what you're doing now. The Sahaba once were in a janazah with Rasulullah SAW. They were in a funeral. And subhanallah, it was a very emotional funeral. And Rasulullah SAW, in certain times of his life, would open up about secrets and about information that the Sahaba didn't know. So in this funeral, after they buried the funeral, Rasulullah SAW said to the Sahaba that there is not a soul out there. There's not a soul out there except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for it where it's going to be. If it's going to be from the people of shaqa or the people of sa'adah, the people of happiness, people of Jannah, or the people who will not make it to Jannah. So one of the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, shouldn't we just wait for our qadr to come to us? Shouldn't we just wait for Jannah? If we're going to be from the people of Jannah, we shouldn't really work. We should just wait because it's already written for us. Rasulullah said, no. He said, اعملوا فكل ميسر لما خلق له. He said, work. Because whatever you do is going to lead you to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted. Meaning that, subhanallah, if you are from those who are going to get to Jannah, inshallah, and inshallah we're all going to be from those people, Allah will put the love of doing good in your heart. And Allah will make it easy for you to do good. And Allah will guide you towards that good. And this is, subhanAllah, a message for every Muslim out there. The moment you feel the need to do a good thing, a good act of worship, whether it be praying or doing charity or learning, yeah? The moment that you feel that you need to do it, and you are 100% sure that this is good, this really goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do it. That's Allah opening the door for you. SubhanAllah. And you should go with that, and that will lead you to, subhanAllah, a lot of, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, a lot of great chances in life, and inshallah ta'ala to Jannat al-Na'im. Allah ta'ala a'lam wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.